15 people who lost half their brain and survived. Throughout the ages, people have survived major incidents that were supposed to take their lives, but cheat death. Some of them have really gone through extreme accidents, yet come out alive to tell their story. Your brain is one of the most important organs in your body. It is a wonder, as some scientists say. It regulates almost all functions of your body. Yet some people lost most of their brain and yet still survived to live a normal life. Discover 15 people who have lost half of their brains in accidents, but managed to survive and live a happy life. 15. Ahad Israfil. Ahad Israfil is a remarkable man from Daytona, Ohio, who has survived a gunshot injury that destroyed almost half of his skull and brain. The accident happened in 1987, when he was just 14 years old. Ahad received the gunshot in his head at work when his employer allegedly knocked a firearm to the floor. He was rushed to the hospital where he underwent a 5-hour operation. Amazingly, after the surgical procedure, he regained his consciousness and attempted to speak right away. Although the bullet damaged almost 50% of his brain tissue and eliminated half of his skull, the skin of his scalp survived, which allows surgeon James Apesos to fill the void with silicone and cover the remaining skull, allowing the hair regrowth and giving him a fairly normal appearance. He has lost some of his physical mobility and now uses a wheelchair, but he has regained most of his faculties and has successfully obtained a degree. Ahad Israfil also appeared on television programs such as World of Pain, Bravo in UK, and Ripley's Believe It or Not. 14. Hu, the half-skulled Chinese farmer. Hu is a Chinese farmer who has lost half of his skull as a result of a dramatic accident. The man was hit by a pile of wood and fell down from the 3rd floor on a construction site, which causes him to lose a great part of his skull and brain. Luckily, he survived. He was rushed to the hospital, Shijing Hospital in Xi'an, where surgeons performed a major surgery in order to save his life. The surgery indeed helps him to reverse the brain damage he sustained. The surgical procedure lasted for 3.5 hours and was performed by numerous national and international experienced surgeons, such as Professor Xu Mao Guo, who heads the Department of Plastic Surgery in Shijing Hospital. However, although Hu, 46, survived the accident, he cannot see clearly in his left eye. He also experiences double vision, diplopia, and is unable to speak and write. Nevertheless, he can still walk and understand when people talk. 13. The boy who lost half his skull. It is very common for babies to fall from their bed. They are usually doing fine without receiving any medical care. It is not the same for Ho Guozhu. Ho Guozhu was 2 years old when he fell from a bed, which has dramatically changed his life for good. The fall causes a serious brain infection and repeated intractable epilepsy, leading medical professionals to perform a major surgery to save his life. Fortunately, the surgical procedure was a success. Days after the procedure, Ho Guozhu was discharged from the hospital and reunited with his parents in his hometown in Shandong Province. In April 8, 2012, he underwent a cosmetic surgery at Peking Union Medical College in Beijing in order to help remold his skull after half was removed due to the infection. The 2-year-old boy has regained his smile and enjoyed playing with other kids. 12. Antonio Lopez Chag. Antonio Lopez Chag is a painter that was severely beaten at a bar and left to die. The beating continued until he lost consciousness. Part of his skull was gone by the time he was taken to the hospital. The incident occurred on April 20th, 2010. Chag, his brother, and 2 nephews went to the neighborhood bar called Barra Latina. For some unknown reason, a relative got involved in a dispute with the bartender manager. One thing led to another, and the manager started beating Antonio with brass knuckles. He received so many hits in his head that part of his skull has been irreparably damaged. Mr. Chag has survived, but his brains is so badly affected that he can't walk, speak, or do most routine things. He has to be assisted by family members or nursing care. The case has gone to court and the jury decided on his favor. Antonio has been awarded $58 million. As for now, he is disabled but wealthy. 11. Mohd Izanudin Hisham Mohammed. Mohd Izanudin Hisham Mohammed is a 24-year-old man who lives in Kampong Kubang, Panjang, and Kelatan, Malaysia. He lost most of his skull following a traffic accident that happened one afternoon. On Friday afternoon, Mohd was riding his motorcycle home from work. A Honda Jazz, which was driven by a Thai, tried to pass another vehicle. Instead, it ended up hitting his motorcycle. Mohd flew like Superman over a long distance and crashed into a large tree by the roadside. The Honda hit him so bad that his helmet broke into 2 pieces. He survived the accident, but he fell into a coma for 3 months. When he awoke, he was shocked to find a huge dent in his head. He said, "I asked my mother, who was by my bed, for a mirror, and I nearly lost my head when I saw that my once perfect head was so deformed." The first day Mohd returned home from the hospital, a kid in the neighborhood cried in fear when he saw his head. Mohammed survives, but his problem is not over yet. Although he is a victim, his parents has to pay all the medical costs. He said, "I hope other readers are touched by my story and support me." 10. Alan Hind. While working on a job in February 2008 for which he has no training, Alan Hind, 28 years old, fell from 25 feet from a building at Watts Yard. He has survived the horrific injury but lost almost half his head. The incident happens while Hind was helping to tear down a building without any safety training and equipment. He fell on his head, which causes massive head injuries, extensive skull fractures, irreparable brain damage, and a broken jaw. He also suffers from optic nerve damage, which has left him one eye blind. The damages are not over yet. Alan also suffers from severe kidney damage. In addition, he has a permanent hearing loss on one side. In total, he underwent 3 major surgical procedures, during which parts of his brain were removed. But he has received financial compensation from the company. The trial was done at Carlisle Crown Court. The jury decided in favor of Mr. Hind. The supervisor, Eric Murray, who allowed him to work on the roof of the building without safety equipment and training, was found guilty. 9. Carlos Haffy Rodriguez. Carlos Rodriguez, username Haffy, is a young man living in Miami, Florida, who has lost about 50% of his brain and skull in a dramatic accident during which he flew through his car's windshield and landed on his head. The accident destroyed the majority of his cerebral hemispheres. To save his life, surgeons cut away large amounts of flesh, as well as a portion of his skull to prevent inflammation and fatal infection. Indeed, Carlos has survived the tragic event and has been living a normal life ever since. The survivor was introduced for the first time by the Miami New Times in its Mugshots Friday series, in which Rodriguez himself explains the traumatic injury to the public. As we all know, drinking or doing drugs while driving is a recipe for disaster. The accident happened while Carlos was driving under the influence. Ironically, despite this tragic event, it appears he is still continuing to do drugs. 8. Jaime Hilton. Jaime Hilton is a former Idaho beauty queen and a mother of 3 who cheated death after she fell and hit her head while on a trip with her husband to Hells Canyon National Recreation Park, Idaho. She did not die but remained unconscious for days. Surgeons performed a long surgical procedure in order to drain her brain, which was swelling and severely bleeding. Her condition was so bad that she was given about 50% chance of survival. After the surgeons removed some of her brain and skull to ease the swelling, they put the removed part inside of her stomach to keep it sterile and nourished. Amazingly, Jaime has not only survived the accident, but also the surgery without any disability. The beauty queen is still beautiful and enjoying life. As gratitude to her supporters and the medical professionals, she stated the following: "My heart feels like it could explode with gratitude. I can read, I can write, I can walk, I can dance, I can carry my kids. I'm just normal." 7. Ben Maycock. Ben Maycock is a teenager who was viciously attacked by a group of punks who hit him several times with a hammer. The attack caused his brain to become swelled, leading health professionals to remove part of his skull to relieve the cerebral inflammation. Ben was 21 years old when he became a victim of the horrific, unprovoked attack. His condition was so bad that his doctor did not give him much chance to survive. In fact, doctors and family members thought he was going to die. But some very experienced surgeons at Nottingham's Queen's Medical Center surgically removed parts of the brain and skull that were damaged to reduce the risk of swelling and infection. Luckily, the surgical procedure was successful. Ben has survived. To help him regain his normal physical ability, which has left him impaired since the attack, he received 3 sessions of physiotherapy per week. He is also required to take some pills daily to help control his fits and spasms, a lasting side effect of the attack. 6. Bobby Valentine. Bobby Valentine was in county jail. For months he had experienced serious headaches due to a chronic sinus infection. Although he kept complaining he does not feel well, he was just given ibuprofen, not proper medical care. The untreated sinus infection turned into a serious complication, spreading to his brain. After being hospitalized in Norman, Oklahoma, the healthcare professionals surgically removed half of his skull and brain to stop the life-threatening infection. The good news is the surgical procedure indeed saves Bobby's life. But now he can't talk, he can't walk, he can't tell you how he feels, his mother Sandy Valentine stated. Our lives have changed because one person couldn't take the time to get him medication. Now the mother is filing a lawsuit against the county and the jail, claiming her son, Robbie Valentine, did not receive proper medical treatment. The family attorney said, "We put people in jail or prison and we just forget about them. We don't care what happens to them. People don't give a damn." 5. Tim Barter. Tim Barter, 32, from Brixton, has lost part of his skull following a fall from a drain pipe. He suffered from a brain hemorrhage, a form of stroke, and fell into a coma for 10 days, during which medical professionals surgically removed part of his skull. Mr. Barter is a professional visual effects supervisor who usually worked on the BBC's Doctor Who. But in June 2009, the unexpected happened while he was climbing up to an upstairs window. The drain pipe collapsed beneath him. As a result, he fell flat on the floor. One of the neighbors found Tim unconscious and immediately took him to the major trauma center at King's College. Imaging techniques revealed he had serious bleeding and swelling on his brain. Thanks to advanced therapeutic procedures, he has survived. The specialists of the hospital used Tim's body fat to reshape his head, a procedure that was done for the first time in Britain. When questioned about the incident, Barter stated, "I love the falling. It's just the split second at the end that's the occasional problem." 4. Stephen Cloak. Stephen Cloak is a young man who was brutally attacked in Bideford, Devon, southwest England, by a drunken teenager for no good reason. The event causes him to lose his forehead, which was surgically removed. On a Saturday, February 27, 2010, while Stephen was walking home, he was attacked by a teenager named Jack Hobbs, who was under the influence. To justify his attack, Jack claimed Cloak looked at him in the wrong way. He fought back by hitting him. Stephen was immediately taken to a hospital to receive proper medical care. Doctors performed surgery on him and removed part of his skull and brain in order to stop bleeding and prevent further infection. Later, a cosmetic surgery was done to insert a titanium plate into his head to make it whole. The case went to court, and the jury found Jack Hobbs guilty. He is now facing up to 10 years in prison for inflicting the savage beating. 3. Steve Gator. Steve Gator is a young forklift driver who was ambushed and viciously attacked by a couple of teenagers while he was returning home from work. The attack left him with a broken skull and severe brain damage. It was an evening of January 15th of 2009. Two young men came to Steve and started harshly yelling at him. He talked back, which led the teenagers to violently hit him repeatedly. Gator was rushed to a nearby hospital. However, he remained in a coma for 2 weeks with little chance to wake up again. While in a coma due to severe damage, part of his skull was surgically removed. Steve's condition was so grave that he was given just 15% chance to live. Amazingly, he has survived the injuries and the surgery. In addition to the therapeutic surgery, Mr. Gator had to undergo a complex 7-hour surgical intervention at Queen's Hospital in order for the surgeons to insert a titanium plate at the front of his head to reshape it. 2. Reese Roberts. Reese Roberts, 27, ended up losing half of his skull and paralyzed after being punched by Thomas Field for no valid reason. Reese received the punch while he stood outside of a bar in Blackpool, enjoying a cigarette. He fell flat on the floor with a severe brain damage, which causes life-threatening injuries. He was rushed to a hospital where surgeons had to remove part of his skull in order to stop his brain from swelling. The surgical procedure has indeed saved his life, but now he is disabled. Reese is now unable to walk and talk. He has to be fed through a tube in his nose. In addition, he has permanently lost major parts of his skull and brain. In a heartbreaking statement, his mom said, "My son has done nothing wrong in his life and has been through hell and back and is still going through it." Ironically, Thomas Field, the punk who drastically changed Reese's life, received only 20 months in prison. The initial sentence was up to 5 years, but his prison term was reduced for showing remorse for the crime. Number 1. The Chinese Man. This is a Chinese man who has lost a great majority of his skull and brain. The picture and news of the incident were published on China's Huanqi website, but no details have been given about the incident that led the man to lose most of his brain. Sources we cannot fully trust claim the man has been involved in a terrible accident, which left parts of his brain and skull severely damaged and surgically removed. But as the picture shows, the accident was tragic, and the victim has lost the majority of his cerebral hemispheres. Following the accident and the surgical procedure, the man is unable to walk properly and do some of the routine things he used to do, but he can move his hands and do other minor activities. In case you have some update or information, please comment below. The sources of your claim would be really appreciated. Thank you for watching to the end. Please like the video and share it with your friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel to help us establish our presence on YouTube.